Hello, it's time for French Politics here on France 24. I'm Mark Perlman.
And I'm Molly Hall. Coming up in today's show, the French government prepares new laws targeting sexual consent, sexual violence, and harassment.
And President Emmanuel Macron tries to revamp the justice system by tackling prison overcrowding.
Plus, the conservatives, the far left, and the far right come together against a common enemy, the media. The French government plans to fix the age of sexual consent at 15. Now, this would be the first such law in France, which currently does not have a rule saying a child under a certain age is considered incapable of consenting to sex.
That's correct, Molly. And the proposal comes after widespread shock at two cases involving 11-year-old girls with adult men. Yanali reports.
Statutory rape, a notion that doesn't yet exist in French law. For rape convictions, prosecutors must prove that there was constraint, threat, violence, or an element of surprise against the victim, implying that the act was forced. Now the government wants to create a minimum age of sexual consent and set it at 15. This means children under that age will be considered victims of rape, as they'd be legally unable to give their consent. The proposal comes after two high-profile cases involving 11-year-old girls. In February, a 30-year-old man was acquitted of rape after a jury decided there wasn't enough evidence given the current law. In April, a similar case came to light when parents accused a 28-year-old man of raping their 11-year-old daughter. He insists the sex was consensual. Deciding on a threshold age isn't without its controversy. France's Judges Union says the new law should stay away from automatically convicting the adult, especially if their ages aren't too far apart. In the US, some states use a so-called Romeo and Juliet clause. The provisions protect young adults who engage in sexual activity with teenagers, whilst still upholding the principle of statutory rape. Details of the new French law will be unveiled on March 21st.
Now, this new law will also target sexual violence and harassment. One measure will see a 90-euro fine for catcalling on the streets or in public transportation. Well, according to a 2016 survey, some 87% of female public transport users said they had suffered harassment, but only 2% had filed a police complaint, even though in a large majority of cases, a witness was present.
And a government spokesman has admitted it would be hard to catch offenders in the act. Junior Equality Minister Marlène Schiappa told France 24 the government must prioritize tackling sexism and predatory behavior. Let's take a listen.
It's a cultural problem. Some things have been accepted for years, for generations. For a long time, people thought, oh, well, that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter. Boys will be boys. These things were accepted, but they are not accepted any longer. And I think it is the role of the law, because the French Republic can say what we tolerate, what we don't tolerate, and indeed, we do not tolerate to see women harassed or threatened in the street or in public transportation.
In the meantime, the French president has unveiled a series of court overhauls in a bid to tackle chronic prison overcrowding. Emmanuel Macron has described conditions in French prisons as, quote-unquote, disgraceful.
That's right. Now, his proposals, which aim to find alternatives to jail, come on the heels of nearly 2 weeks of protests in January by prison guards that are angry over security risks and poor pay.
An answer to France's overcrowded jails. French President Emmanuel Macron unveiled a series of prison reforms on Tuesday, which centered on finding alternative solutions for terms less than a month.
Sentences of 1 month or less will be terminated. They'll be terminated because they're pointless.
Judges will instead be asked to issue other forms of probation for minor sentences, like the use of electronic bracelets, on-the-spot fines, or community service. But not everyone is on board with the idea.
I think it's a big mistake to think that we don't have to give out short-term prison sentences. The fact is, we already hand out enough of these probation sentences.
Macron defended the new set of policies, however, stating they would be anything but lax.
Clearly, we won't be treating crimes any less severely than before. On the contrary, I invite those who think the new policy is lax to wear an electronic bracelet on a daily basis.
Another 1,500 jobs will be added to reinforce probation and reinsertion programs. The new measures come following a series of protests that erupted in January. Prison guards across the country staged walkouts, citing safety concerns and low pay. The protests ended after the government promised to create 1,100 new jobs and add 30 million euros in extra pay for guards.
Now, the flurry of reforms launched by the president and by his prime minister is taking its toll on their popularity ratings. This week, they both hit a record low, 44% for Emmanuel Macron and 46% for Edouard Philippe. That's down 10 points and 13 points, respectively, since January.
This week, a historic figure of the Socialist Party announced he was leaving. The announcement by the foreign minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian, was yet another blow to a party in tatters since its drubbing in last year's election. More strikingly, no one seems to care anymore about the party and its future leader, who will be designated this month. On Wednesday, the four contenders squared off in a debate, but the French, even the socialist faithful, couldn't care less.
That's right. Now, Mark, a poll taken before the debate shows that 77% of the French have a negative opinion of the Socialist Party. And when you ask who would be the best leader, well, some 80% simply have no opinion. And even among socialist sympathizers and supporters, a majority, 52%, express no preference.
While the candidate with the biggest name recognition, former minister and government spokesman Stéphane Le Foll, pointed out that the party now had to clarify what kind of left it wanted to embody.
I think that despite its imperfections, this debate has shown that there is a debate in the Socialist Party, especially between what's basically the traditional left and a more centrist social democratic approach. I am satisfied on this occasion that we've been able to look at things in a more objective way, and it's now up to party members to decide.
In France, the conservatives, the far left, and the far right rarely see eye to eye, but they've now united against a common enemy, us, the media, and the leftist leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon wants to go to war. Julia Kim has the story.
An unexpected trio. Laurent Wauquiez, Jean-Luc Mélenchon and Marine Le Pen are at war against the mainstream media. But it's the far-left firebrand who raised the battle cry on his blog, following the controversy that his inner circle had manipulated funds during his presidential campaign.
The hatred of the media and its hosts is legitimate and sound. Many of our friends haven't yet grasped that our real enemy is the media party. It alone is leading the battle on the ground, injecting drugs into our brains every day.
Public support for his stance came from an unlikely source. Far-right National Front leader Marine Le Pen, whose party is under investigation for allegedly misusing European Union funds and campaign finance fraud.
Since he's become a victim of it himself, Mélenchon has discovered this powerful media, which goes against Emmanuel Macron's opponents. I've known about this for a long time.
And in the spirit of making strange bedfellows, Mélenchon publicly extended his sympathies to the leader of the right-wing Les Républicains. Laurent Wauquiez landed in hot water last month after the press released a secret recording of him criticizing his peers.
The media protects some and targets others. I think that the right wing is often the subject of trial by media.
But critics say this demonization of the media by politicians, in fact, serves their own ends.
This anti-media myth pays off because it supports a bigger myth that there's this mysterious elite that controls the story and is hostile to average people.
In an attempt to offer an alternative to mainstream outlets, Mélenchon's France Insoumise party launched its own internet news channel, Les Médias, in January. But the recent departure of its main anchor, Aude Rossignol, and controversy surrounding its stance on some stories have compelled several backers to withdraw their support, including Green Party MP Noël Mamère.
The management committee resembles a committee of Soviets. It's a channel that reproduces identically the ideas defended by France Insoumise, particularly on the question of Syria.
This comes as the French government aims to debate the draft bill to fight fake news by May.
This weekend, the National Front will hold its Congress. And despite achieving its best performance ever in last year's presidential election, party leader Marine Le Pen has been under fire even within her own camp and hit by legal troubles.
That's true, Molly. And according to a recent poll asking whether she would make a good leader, only 16% of the French say yes, down from 24% a year ago. Marine Le Pen is now trying to revamp her party, changing its name, building alliances, and hopefully get back on track to challenge Emmanuel Macron in next year's European elections.
Well, now, in addition to those concerns, Marine Le Pen still has to deal with her father, Jean-Marie, who has turned into a bitter enemy. While he's been ejected from the party, he's still enjoying the spotlight, without publishing his memoirs and even speaking to a gay magazine to claim he is not homophobic.
That's all we have time for this week.
Indeed, we'll leave you now with images from the French presidential palace, where Emmanuel Macron welcomed the world's top fashion elite.
The 51%, presented by Annette Young.
Hello, I'm Annette Young, the host of 51%, and I'm at the European Parliament in Brussels this week with my colleagues from the French, Spanish and Arabic networks.
Hola.
Bonjour. Merhaba.
Now, here's a question that working women, especially here in Europe, are asking. Why is it that so many of us are still being paid substantially less than men? Join us here at France 24 as we take a look at what needs to be done to close the gap.
Take them to their heart or disregard them.
The 51% on France 24 and France24.com.